Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Theological Leftovers. I have a hodgepodge of things to share with you, and not much of a voice to do it. This cough is just hanging on, but a lot of things. I had the opportunity to be at a pastors' conference in Indy for a couple of days this week, and learned a lot of neat things. Some of the things I knew, but they were said in ways that were new to me, and I always like having new ways to say the same things. The important stuff, So I have a few of those things just from, I guess, from devotions over the past couple of weeks. I have a couple of quotes to share with you, and then for the folks here in the Evansville area, especially to our congregation, I have probably the longest section of what I want to share with you is just a little bit of a caution or a warning that I want to share with our folks that are more local, even though it probably applies wherever you are watching from too. So I think I'll start with the quotes. The first one is from Martin Luther. And I'm not sure where I read this, probably from the Treasury of Daily Prayer. That would be my guess. But it fits so perfectly with some of the things we've been talking about here at Concordia, especially as we think about the purpose of trials or of testing that God provides. God doesn't tempt. He never tempts. But he does test, and the difference may be weird between those things. But tempting is something that comes from the devil, not from God. And the purpose of temptation, as far as that goes, it could come from the world, it could come from my own heart too. But the purpose of temptation is always to draw me away from God, right? And God's desire is the opposite of that. And so he tests. And Martin Luther, just a simple quote. He says, "It is better to be tried than to be puffed up." And I thought, what a beautiful, short, simple sentence to help us understand the value of testing, even though it may not be comfortable at the time. There is value to it, because, especially if I'm puffed up, if I'm arrogant in how I approach God or whatever. It's better to be tried than to be puffed up. Right, and this is really one of the great things that trials do is it humbles me, and it reminds me again of my need for my Father in heaven, who loves me and who provides for me. Right, it is better to be tried than to be puffed up. Martin Luther, you can share it. All right, the next quote. This is from a poem, and I got a book as a gift last year, and it's been a real challenge to get through. Well, it's been a challenge not to get through it because it's just a thin book by George MacDonald, one of my favorites. And George MacDonald, he wrote a little poem for every day of the year. So the temptation was always to read ahead and to read through the whole thing, especially when I get to a part that I really, really like. It's not an easy read by any chance. It's poetry, but this, maybe from a week or two ago, this was part of one of his poems. And we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but I just want to share it with you and you can think about it. And then if you have comments or thoughts on it, you want to talk about it, just leave a comment for me and we'll do that. But here's what he writes. He says, "No place on earth henceforth I shall count strange." Right? "No place on earth henceforth I shall count strange, for every place belongeth to my Christ. No place on earth henceforth I shall count strange, for every place belongeth to my Christ." It reminds me of Joshua, or God speaking to Joshua before they go into the promised land. He says, wherever you set your foot, I will give to you. Right? And it's just this constant refrain. You hear it especially in the Old Testament of God talking about how he will go before us. He leads the way. He fights the battle, right? And then, of course, in the New Testament, we have Jesus who just explains that he is the good shepherd, right? He is the good shepherd, which means he leads, right? No place on earth henceforth I shall count strange, for every place belongeth to my Christ. I don't know about you, but it's so hard for me. It's so challenging when I'm in an uncomfortable place. It's one thing when I'm in my home, or when I'm in the congregation where have been called to be the pastor. I've been here a long time now, and I feel comfortable. But when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, when I'm in a place um, that I've never been in before, around people that I don't necessarily know, this is good to know, right? I feel out of place. I maybe am intimidated, but every place belongeth to my Christ, right? Every place belongs to my Christ. Um, yeah, there's a lot we could say about that, but I just would leave it to you to consider. And like I said, if you want to talk about it, leave a comment and we'll talk about it. But I think it's cool. So those are the two quotes. I have a few more. I'll share them another time. The other thing I want to share with you is one of my sons brought this to my attention. He was over at the library, and disclaimer: I'm not complaining about the library. I just don't think I don't think they know any better. They just see this as a cultural thing, and it's just a matter of kind of sharing cultures with the community. But we need to be a little bit, as Christians, a little bit more discerning than that. So again, this isn't the purpose of this last thing that I want to share with you is not to hammer on the library. There are some things that are worth hammering on, but uh, this is just more when it comes to you, when it comes to your children. Just be aware of what it is that's being offered, and recognize it's not Christian. Okay, so we are approaching in the next, I guess I've already lost track. We're approaching Halloween, October 31st, Reformation Day, and we're approaching All Saints Day on November 1st. And kind of squeezed into all of that is this, the West Franklin Library is offering a free to the public kind of party sort of thing for the Day of the Dead. And I mean, you can take a look. These are at every library and see what kind of events, what kind of things are going on. And this is not Christian. And I would discourage you from participating in this. And I would discourage you from, even though it's got food and fun activities for the kids and stuff like that, it is teaching something that's just not Christian in terms of how we commune with the people that have in our life that have died, and where we seek comfort after they have died, and that leads us down a dangerous path. So again, I would discourage you from participating in any kind of Day of the Dead activities that you might find. And I know it's kind of found its way through the culture into the church, but it's really a blending of Christianity and sort of a paganism that is just isn't appropriate. If you want to be better equipped, well, first of all, just step back. If you want comfort when it comes to those who have passed away, who have died in the faith, if you want to figure out how to teach your children about death and about their loved ones who have died, and kind of how to contend with death, come to church, right? I mean, really, and not even just on any particular day, but just come to church, because this is something that we deal with and we talk about all the time, every single Sunday at least, because Sunday is the day of the Lord's resurrection, right? And we talk about resurrection. There's not a single Sunday when we don't. So this is the way to prepare your kids. And honestly, this is where our comfort as Christians comes from, is knowing that Jesus is the first fruits from the dead, and that he's coming back, and that all who have died in the faith will be resurrected, will be raised and reunited. And we look forward to that day. There is a special day coming up. I mentioned a moment ago, though, and it's not going to have face painting and food and all of that sort of stuff. But we are going to commemorate All Saints Day, not on November 1st, but the Sunday following it. And this is a good opportunity as well to talk about not just our loved ones who have died, but other Christians who have died in the faith, and how are we to recognize them? What is All Saints' Day really all about? And the Augsburg Confession and the Apology to the Augsburg Confession both have an article on this topic. And it offers a couple of things that I just quickly want to share with you. One, we want to keep these people in remembrance. We want to remember these people. We want to remember their faithfulness in word and deed, because that strengthens our faith, right? To see the grace that they received. So it's not even just the good things they did. It's even just recognizing that they lived a life that was dependent on the forgiveness that Christ won for them, right? So we may even remember some of their sins and how they were, kind of like Luther says with it's better to be tried than to be puffed up, how their trials humbled them so that they continued in the faith, and they continued to turn to Christ. So for our faith is strengthened when we see the grace that they received, when we see how they were sustained in the faith as they went through challenging times. That strengthens our faith, right? It's also, they are also, we remember them because they're an example for us in our calling. I mean, in terms of the faithfulness that they showed, the good deeds that they did, the way that they loved God and their neighbor. These are good for us, and it's good for us to remember these noble things that they did, right? The scripture, or pardon me, not the scriptures, but the scriptures are included in this. But in the Augsburg Confession, Melanchthon writes, "However, it cannot be proved from the scriptures that we are to invoke saints or to seek help from them." So in other words, we do not pray for the saints. We do not ask for the saints to intercede for us. And Melanchthon quotes 1 Timothy 2:5 that says, "For there is one mediator between God and men, Christ Jesus." Just one. We don't need more than Jesus, right? He prays for us. He prays with us. He's our mediator, right? So the scriptures they don't encourage us to invoke saints or seek help from them. That's not the kind of relationship that we have with them. I'm not saying they're not alive. They're with God. They're alive, but we don't have that kind of relationship where we invoke their name or seek their help, right? What we do is we honor them, right? We honor those who have died in the faith, who have gone before us. We thank God, first of all. This is how we honor them. We thank God for showing examples of mercy to us, right? So our thanksgiving is always to God, who provided these people, right? So as we remember and our faith is strengthened, we give thanks to God. Number 2, we honor the saints, as I said before, because it strengthens our faith to remember them. And number 3, we imitate them, right? What they did that was good, we want to imitate that. We want to imitate their faith, and we want to imitate their virtues as well. So these are the ways that we honor the saints. We don't forget them. We thank God for them, and we imitate them, both their faith and their virtues. So it's good to talk about the people, whether they be, grandpa and grandma, or mom and dad, or you talk about somebody that lived in the 15th century or the 1st century, or even prior to Christ. We look at Abraham or Noah, we look at all these people. Honestly, we look at their lives. We see how God blessed them, provided for them, strengthened their faith, gave them opportunities to do good things, and we remember that stuff, and we value it. That's how we are blessed by those who have gone before us in the faith. But we do not invoke saints. We do not seek help from them. And there are other things that are wrong with this, but that's part of what the Day of the Dead does. We don't want to participate in that. So again, I would discourage our folks. Come to All Saints' Day. Come to the Joint Reformation Service. Don't participate in stuff that might lead you in the wrong direction, and that will teach our kids something that's not true and not good. All right? Again, if you have comments, you have questions, let me know. God bless you all. God bless your week.